Hey, this sitting down and talking about your thoughts, I find it to be very liberating. Sometimes I find myself with rage, find myself upset about stuff. And then when I talk about it, it goes away. So I think I'll keep doing that. First, I want to show you a short little video and then give you my final thoughts.
My question to you: Where were the unions at that time? Why didn't the union stand up for workers? The nurses union didn't stand up for nurses. Nobody stood up for workers. Nobody. I had Cornel West on my show. He couldn't give a shit. It was like water off a duck's ass to him. He couldn't care less that workers had to be mandated to take vaccines. And then got fired for it. So nobody stood up. The people, and I bring up Cornell because you expect him to stand up. His whole thing is I stand up with the oppressed and workers. And when the time came, he turned a blind eye to it, and everybody like him did too, except you and me. And so I want to say congratulations. Why do you think the unions abandoned their own people over that?
Look, the unions in this country have been on a decline for 70 years. If you look at the statistic, it's a line that goes down in one direction. Once upon a time, we had 35% of the labor force in this country member of unions. Today, it's in the neighborhood of 10, 11% that are in unions. It's been a decline. The unions have been fighting a losing battle to survive. And so when they have been confronted with major issues, they have not been able to do very much. Not just the whole question of the vaccine during the pandemic. Look, for the last 30 years, we've had a massive exodus of businesses from this country moving their production lines to Brazil or China or India or wherever they've gone, taking away the good jobs, taking away all of the supports that created an American middle class. The unions could have and should have been working hard again, but they couldn't. They were barely able to keep their heads above water. And they've had many other kinds of issues like that. I don't want to make an excuse for them, but I do want to understand that they needed what they're now doing, which is understanding they've got to start all over. They've got to build a labor movement, and they're doing it. That's what's happening at Starbucks. That's what's happening at Amazon. We're seeing it all across the countries. We're seeing it in the colleges and universities. We're on the biggest upsurge of labor, and I think you're going to see in the months and years ahead that the unions will take strong positions on all kinds of important issues for the public. They've kind of learned their lesson that when they grew in the 1930s, they also grew in a way that could be undone afterwards by a business assault that was very successful. And they've learned that lesson. I really do think so. And we're now seeing unions. Look what Sean Fain and the UAW were able to do in Chattanooga, Tennessee a few weeks ago, breaking into the South, mobilizing, winning an effort at the VW plant there with a 70+% vote of the workers to do what they had to do to get the strikes and the union settlements. So I think we're kind of a turning point in the labor movement, and we're watching the kind of development that will not allow unions to listen to the arguments. Look, unions know from a long time that the pharmaceutical industry in the United States is one of the most monopolized in our country. We really have a medical industrial complex just as powerful in its way as the military industrial complex that you and others have talked about.
Great video. I saw that today. Eye-opening, really. I'm glad I came across that. Those two guys are very, well more articulate than me. But regardless of that, I'm glad I stand up for myself and speak my mind. Funny thing is, a few days ago, I did a video about the subject and I put it in the public forum at my work. We have a forum with 2,500 people. And early on in the pandemic, obviously, I voiced my opinion, and we got into some heated debate with people. which was great, but hundreds of messages back and forth. When I put this video up last week, there was no messages. Nothing. Zero. Why is that? Are people embarrassed to talk about this? They should be outraged. But regardless of that, I am not from the right. I am not from the left. Just an ordinary guy that want to be left alone. I want to exercise the freedom to choose, the freedom to speak, and the freedom to do whatever the fuck I want to do. Leave you with something? Stand up for yourself. It's like a bully. If somebody bullies you, they will bully you forever until you say stop. The day you say stop, they'll never bully you again. In my video, I called a few people out because I think it's my duty as a union paying member. And I called some people out. Probably two reasons. Number one is because unions are supposed to stand up for the rights of workers. And number two, because I voted for this fucking guy. And then when I needed the support from my union, when I needed them to back me up, they left me on the side of the road. Me and over 200 families with kids, 4 kids, some of my friends. So, I cannot let that slide. We have been brainwashed year after year. We have a course called Union Awareness. They just brainwash the shit out of you about why unions are so good. But let me tell you something. In 28 years, when I needed them, they weren't there for me. Unifor, you suck. And if you don't change your ways, it ain't gonna be no Unifor no more. And how does Unifor, the largest union in Canada, look now after the pandemic? They look like fools. So get out of the pockets of the political elite. Get out of the pockets of the pharmaceutical industrial complex and start representing the people that paid you to.